Hello everyone, thank you for joining us again today. We will be doing a repeat of our May release package tasting as we had some technical difficulties with the live video. We'll be running through the 2019 Rosé, 2018 Catherine's Blend, 2017 Benoni's Blend, 2017 Meritage, 18 Norton, and the 2017 GSM. To my right, we have our wonderful winemaker Seth, and to my left, we have our assistant winemaker Ed.
He's not as wonderful.
I was going to say, you left out wonderful.
No, I did, but I was waiting, for you to say something. Before we get started, a couple announcements. Bill, you can come pick up your wine at any point. We unfortunately are not open with the rest of Virginia. We hopefully will be opening up by the end of the month, but we'll see what they say. But for now, we are still doing the curbside delivering and free shipping. And for any of the wines in the package, you are going to get additional 5% off any of those purchased. So if you drink through it, you want to have some more, you can definitely come do that through us. So Ed, why don't you get us started?
All right, thank you, Zachary, and hello again, everyone. I'm going to start us off with our 2019 Rosé. This Rosé is Cabernet Sauvignon based, about 90% Cabernet Sauvignon based, from our own vineyard. 2019 you'll get a little argument that most people think is one of the best years we've had for fruit in a while in Virginia. I think this Rosé and the Cabernet Sauvignon proper that we made from it is one of the best Cabernet Sauvignons and Rosés that we've done. We do our rosés typically in the Provence style. Provence is a region of France, southeast, borders Italy. The most classic Provence style rosé will say it's going to be dry, and you get this somewhat orange to pink color. A lot of people kind of pick up that orange and they think it's off, but that's actually very typical of that style of rosé. Again, dry and crisp. Now I mentioned that this was 90% Cabernet Sauvignon, and that was done in steel. The other 10% is actually Albarino, which was done in oak, but it was neutral oak, so it's not going to push any oaky flavors really into the wine, but it does add a little element of softness, creaminess, even at just 10%, but there's still some very nice acidity on this one. So let's take a little nose on it. We want to do one from the top, like this, and then come in from the bottom. And you get some real nice notes of unripened strawberry in this. Now, if you're like me, and I know a lot of you are, you like both your whites and particularly these crystal rosés, I'll say heavily chilled, more chilled than the experts might recommend. And that's fine. I would, like everybody at some point, if you have some extra bottles of this, you haven't opened it already, is to try it at that traditional temperature, 54, 53 degrees. It will really open up the bouquet, both on the palate and the nose. So I'm going to try a little taste of it now. And there's that nice acidity, citrus, grapefruit, a little bit of unripe watermelon or watermelon close to the rind. Really nice, really refreshing. I would pair this with really pink foods. I know that sounds cliched or silly, but it's actually true. Salmon goes really well with salmon, other crustacean type seafood. Try it with a rosé cream sauce on a Mediterranean pasta dish. It's going to go really well with that. You guys have any thoughts?
I think it's delicious.
One of my favorite rosés we've had in a while. So,
Agreed. I'm not going to dump that.
Never mind. I was going to dump it.
All right. So now we're going to move on to the 2018 Catherine's Blend. Most of you know that weather-wise, 2018 was a tough year for Virginia, but not a total loss. Some of the whites did quite well, and this is one of them, I think. Anybody that saw me working last summer out in the crush pad, at the end of the day, I was going to have a glass of Petit Manseng. We're all out of that this year. This is going to be my after-work wine on those hot summer days. This is 60% Petit Manseng and 40% Traminette. You're all familiar with Petit Manseng, grows in the southwest of France. Lots of citrus, lots of pineapple notes. It does well in any kind of weather. It's known for being able to concentrate sugars and acidity, and that's what makes this so bright. However, I think the best thing about this is the aroma. So let's go ahead and do that. And again, similar to what I mentioned with the rosé, if you get a chance to try this a little bit warmer, 55 degrees, it'll really open up the nose. But that aroma you get is Traminette, hands down for me. It's just got such a fragrant floral aroma on it. I get roses on it, a bit of Indian spice like curry, cardamom.
Just a whisper.
Just a whisper. Really nice. It's one of those wines where I could probably just smell it for a good 5 or 10 minutes before I ever took a drink of it. But again, lots of acidity on this. Really nice. I would pair this strong cheeses, really sharp cheddars, blue cheese, gorgonzolas. Would go really well with any type of deep fried fish, catfish, even fried shrimp maybe. Anything that's going to have some oils in it, some fats. That acidity is going to cut through that, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. But it's also just a really nice hot weather patio wine. Any comments?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have definitely seen this wine before. We've given it to you in previous packages, and it has softened up quite a bit from those previous packages. It doesn't seem as acidic and as tart as people might kind of remember it. It does remind me a lot of the Gewürztraminer without the herbaceousness. So this is going to be a little more juicy, a little more fruity, but I love this wine. I'm with Ed. This is going to be my summer wine, definitely.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons it reminds Zachary of Gewürztraminer, and he knows this, of course, but it's a hybrid of Gewürztraminer and actually 4 other varietals. Fairly young. I read that it was actually not even released in production until 1996. So
Made at Cornell, if I'm not mistaken. And yet it shares the moniker Traminette because Gewürztraminer and Traminette, so that's where the name comes from as well.
It's one of the few wines that I must almost can always just pick out from the nose.
Absolutely. Very inviting in this one, especially.
I haven't done this one either.
No, but luckily we're moving on to the reds. Bononis, I guess.
Yes. So I will do my best to describe. I'm not going to be as refined as Edward is, but I will do my best. Yeah, who is in this time. But we're going to be talking about the Bononis, and this is a fun wine. If you did tasting with me, you have heard me refer to this wine as a red wine with training wheels, and I do that because this is a very, very light, easy drinking wine. This is a wine that traditionally has been made from Cab Sauv from our vineyard. We actually got a whole lot of Cab Franc out from the West Coast out in 2017, so you see that in a lot of our blends. Bononi, the name came from the gentleman Benoni E. Harrison, who bought the house back in 1827, I believe, and lived here up until he died 1860s, late 1860s. He was buried on the original property. He unfortunately didn't have any children, so this was kind of our way of carrying on his lineage. He got a wife, wine. His wife got a wine, Catherine. Then we have the Bononi's Lounge named after them. Our vineyards named after them, as well as our house Meritage blend, Harrison House. This wine is delicious, and you've seen me and Seth kind of do this, and you're kind of see me walk through this, the 4 S's. So we're going to start by kind of looking at the wine, swirling around. I want to see it, and it definitely has a beautiful, beautiful ruby red color. You guys got anything to add to the color? I'm not really seeing any type of whole lot of rim variation. It's pretty consistent from edge to center. Still young, but a lot of that Chamberson is going to give us a lot of that color. And that is the blend here, Cab Franc and Chamberson. Then we're going to swirl it and give it a nice sniff. And I got to say, this is probably my favorite out of the package, truthfully. It's going to be all nose, all front. You get a lot of that oak, a little bit of that almost cocoa on the nose. And then we'll swirl, sniff, and then sip. Cherry for me. A lot of like that chocolate covered cherry, but very light tannins. Very, very approachable and very, very light tannins. Any different for you?
No. I mean, I think this Benoni's landed very, very well on this style that we're trying to convey with this. It's a light, easy, approachable wine. Still has all the classic red wine characteristics, the tannins, brighter acid, darker red fruits, the mocha, the cocoa on the nose. But I think it's presented in a balanced sort of way that it doesn't scare off people who don't enjoy heavy reds. It kind of, it's a beginner's red wine almost, so to speak. But that's not even to say that you can't enjoy this if you like serious reds. I quite like this a lot.
100%. For me, this is that. I mean, as Ed said with the Catherine's one, this is that deck wine. You want a big red, it's 90 degrees out, you're on the deck, you're on your boat, things of that nature. This is that red wine that's got the nose, it's got the flavor, it's got the front, but it doesn't have that moisture zapping tannins that suck that moisture out of your mouth, that leave you that kind of texture on your palate. This is very, very refreshing, but still has a lot of complexity to it. I think it's very nice. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just to reiterate, I think it's probably one of the more mature Benonis that we've done for the mature red wine drinker, but it is still very approachable for someone that doesn't necessarily drink a lot of reds. Certainly my favorite of the Benonis.
I have a feeling that you could take this to a party where you don't know everybody's wine tastes, and out of 10 random people, 8 of them will like this. I think it's that kind of wine that will have that sort of appeal. So
100%. I think it's on the flip side of that same party. You get those folks that don't like reds. This is the one you pour for them and you're finding, oh wow.
I can drink this.
I can drink this. Yeah, I can drink this. Even put it in the fridge and put just a slight chill to it. That 10, 15 minutes in the fridge just to bring out a little more of that fruit, bring it to a proper temperature, does make that difference. So we'll finish this one up. And this one's my favorite out of the package, hands down.
It's hard to choose. So the rosé, the GSM, even the Meritage, but.
Well, I mean, if I'm going for bottles that I've taken home, it's the Benoni. All right. So we're moving on to the 2017 Meritage. Meritage, like heritage, is a term that only developed was come to the limelight about I think the 1980s. It was a term that was developed by American vintners that were essentially creating a term to classify a new world wine that is made in the traditions of Bordeaux style. Traditionally, we're looking at the 5 Bordeaux grapes of France: Cab Franc, Cab Sauv, Petit Verdot, Merlot, and Malbec. This particular blend is a little bit different than what we've done in the past. Typically, they're either Merlot heavy or Cab Sauv heavy. This one's actually Cab Franc heavy. So Cab Franc, Merlot, and Petit Verdot on the finish. According to the records, we actually have no Cab Sauv in this. Meritage is a wine that is always kind of renowned for its ageability as well as its approachability at a young age, and I do think we found that very much here with this wine. It is something that definitely needs time to sit. In 2017, pick 2017, bottle ideally 2018?
The end of 2018.
So, yeah, so end of 2018, so we're looking, a little over 2 years in the bottle, potentially. So very young wine. Definitely something that we definitely want to either decant, age, or at the very minimum, just let breathe before you start diving into the bottle. And when I say age, I don't say just take a single bottle, put it up, let it sit. Aging is a process where you are having multiple bottles, where you're revisiting every 3 to 6 months. For me to tell you that this needs to sit on for, a year, that's my preference. Your preference is yours. Seth has his, Ed has his. The idea is you need to have that wine to revisit, to sample it, then to see, is this where I want it to be? Should I wait longer? Is it balanced, or is it vinegar? Because all wine is trying to become the vinegar, so you need to catch it that peak point before it definitely starts to turn. And for starters, like the Benonis, we'll do the 4 S's. We're going to see that wine. Beautiful, beautiful color. Yeah, and we're gonna get a lot of that. The dark colors. The Merlot, Cab Franc, Petit Verdot, those are all deep colored reds, and it is quite young, so we're not going to find any of that oxidation or browning or lightening of the wine. We'll swirl it and we'll give it a nose. Ed?
I'm jumping ahead. It's delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it's, again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's one of the nicest marriages that I think we've done here as well.
Mhm.
I was always a big favorite of big fan of the 14, but this is really, really nice. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I can say about it.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the nose is something that I definitely, we've done this about 4 times, so we've tried these wines a couple of times. And I can say the differences of doing it every time, it is a little bit different every time we go to it. And I think that just speaks volumes to the complexity of the wine. I mean, if you're going to a wine and, it's the same thing every single time you've had it, how really complex is that wine? And we're finding that this is different. Just letting it breathe, just letting it open up definitely brings up more of the characters of the oak on the nose, a little more of that kind of dark earthiness from the Cab Franc, the overly ripened cherries. And then the palate, I almost feel a little bit of that molasses kind of feel from that Petit Verdot and tannins in the finish. But it is, again, still young. This is something that I definitely would like to just put up and really see how it blossoms into the finished wine. Anything to add, Seth?
No, I would completely agree with everything he said. My one thing about this wine is it is young, it is tight, and letting it decant in air and really swirl around your glass before you try it is allowing it to develop a little bit more. There's a lot of underlying characteristics with that. This is one that I am very excited to kind of watch age, try a bottle every few months to make sure it's still fresh in my memory, but as it progresses, as it ages, becomes more mature, just really watching it happen and kind of, being just very elated with the product of what landed in bottle, so.
Yeah, and like I said, we've done this a couple times, and at no point have we ever been upset about opening this bottle. We say that it's young, but it's got a lot of potential. And like I said with Meritage, it's a wine that's noted for its approachability at that young age, but has that ability to age quite nicely. If you got a bottle of the 15, pull it out, open it up, compare it to the 16. Go through it, see how they change, see how they differ. Moving on to Seth with the Norton.
Hate to pour that out, but gotta make room.
I made room.
So yes, I will be talking about our 2018 Norton. And actually, before I get into this wine, this grape, this bottle, Norton is a very controversial grape, even before it is a grape or even before it's a wine. This is due to a number of reasons, but I'm going to talk about the genesis of it. Virginia has a gentleman in our history named Dr. Norton. This gentleman is the first one to have handwritten notes that he was the first person to cultivate this wine, and hence why it carries his moniker, his name on it, as the Norton grape, coming from Dr. Norton and his research. There is another state down south, Missouri, that also claims a genetic clone of Norton as Cynthia. They claim this to be their grape, it's part of their history, and it's something that was made in Missouri. And we have the Norton records, they have the Cynthia records, and it's just one of these things that we can't even reconcile exactly and pinpoint exactly who was the first to have this, who was the first to breed these vines and kind of get it. Because Norton is very different than Vitis vinifera. Every wine you see up here is made with Vitis vinifera grapes, except for the Traminette in the Catherine's blend. As Ed was talking about, that just came to be a grape varietal, a winemaking grape varietal in the mid-90s, I think. So hybrids are kind of new to the scene. Norton is definitely older than Traminette, but it's different than what the world knows as winemaking grapes, which is Chardonnay, Merlot, Cab Sauv, Riesling, all of the European grapes. And something else that gives Norton a very different characteristic, a very different appeal, is the physiology of the grape acids that are found in it. Every grape in the world is about 90% tartaric acid. Every wine grape in the world, I'll say that, is about 90% tartaric acid. Norton is the one exception to that. It flips the ratios and it has 90% malic acid as opposed to tartaric. And these small little configuration changes in the acids give you big flavor and big mouthfeel changes. The difference of a Granny Smith apple to the flavor of a grape is the difference of malic acid to tartaric acid. And Norton is one of those. That really highlights these different flavors, and it's the only wine, in my opinion, that I have ever said tastes like grapes. But Chardonnay, Merlot, all these other grapes that make wine, we talk about them as apricot, watermelon, strawberries, leather, moss, everything else under the sun except for grapes. Norton in my opinion, has that grape aroma, kind of like grape bubblegum, or Concord grape juice, those kind of flavors to it. So
Definitely.
now into this particular vintage of Norton, I'm going to be doing it similar to what Zach started with the S's. I find them to be the best way to really talk about and study a wine. So the first one is sight. You'd never want to overlook the color and the appearance of the wine. As Zach kind of hinted at, the color and kind of the banding and how the alcohol ring sits, these can all give you ideas and clues into the wine's age and kind of how it was vinified. Everybody sees the sommeliers do that by a few looks, a sniff, and a small taste, and they know where it came in the world. They're just basically doing they're looking at the wine and they're checking off the characteristics, and it kind of gives them an answer at the end, and sight is very important. So this one, Norton is very red, almost has a little bit of garnet in the middle. I don't really see purple. Norton is usually a darker, more purplish grape, but I'm going to say that the color of this wine is more due to the vintage of 2018. Very wet, lots of rain. Grapes like Norton didn't get to fully mature, so we had to pick these unripe, where the reds didn't make it the whole way to the purple. So that's where you get a little bit of the light color to it. Moving on to the sniff. This is where I start to get that grape, the Concord grape smell to it. Also kind of fruit compote, blueberry, heavy fruity notes to it, but also there's a little bit of clove, almost cinnamon baking spices on top of this.
Yeah, I mean, it smells like almost to me like that dehydrated fruit.
And it's very appealing, and it's very, if you like Norton, I think this is very varietally correct. One of the other important S's is the swirl. It will change the smell sometimes, so you do want to give it a little bit of oxygen, blow off some of the aromas, and hopefully find some new ones. You come back, the smell on this one, because it's a young wine, is similar to it unswirled, and I kind of swirl it the entire time anyway, so not getting too much of a difference on that. Moving on to the sip, arguably the most important. This to me is everything a Norton normally is. Very bright acidity. It's almost like sour cherries, has that blueberryness to it, a deep fruit aspect, dark plums, brambleberry, these kind of things. It's definitely a deeper wine, but it lacks a little bit of tannins. It doesn't really come across as being too grippy, like sandpaper. It's a little bit more smooth and kind of juicy and luscious, in my opinion, for this Norton. You guys have anything to add on the flavors or the aromas?
No, that was pretty much it. I mean, nailed it. I mean,
Well, we were joking around about, because we keep saying it's jammy and grapey and having it with a peanut butter sandwich, so I actually tried that Sunday night. It reminded me that I don't really like peanut butter sandwiches.
You had a jelly though, right? Or was it just peanut butter?
Just peanut butter, no. This was supposed to be the jelly, right?
I would have put
Did you
jelly. I think it would
Well,
have
actually, you say that, I actually considered that to dip it, but no, I did not.
But it's not soup.
got soft
There's something to it, though. There really is something to that pairing. I'm just, again, not a fan of peanut butter, but...
If you are looking to pair this with something, I wouldn't go with just peanut butter and bread. I personally would add jelly. But also, I think that this wine would lend itself to any venison, any kind of a stew, beef stew, that kind of thing. Lots of vegetables, and a hearty meat, even like a meatloaf, something like that, I think would pair really nicely with this Norton. So hopefully you guys like it, and from start to finish, I mean, Norton is a love it or hate it kind of grape. If you like Nortons, I really think that you will like this, and if you don't, I would encourage you to give it a try, because it is a good representation of what a Virginia Norton can be. And now on to the last, but certainly not least. This is one of my favorite wines in the package. This is our 2017 GSM. It is named GSM specifically because of the grapes that are blended into it: Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvedre. And actually, because labeling constraints, we very particularly do 33% of each, because if you have the grape names on the label and they're printed in any sort of order, it has to go from most to least in descending order. So if I ever mess with the blend on this wine, we could end up with a MSG, SMG, all sorts of stuff. So we're going to stick with the Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre. This is a Rhone blend, and one of the reasons that I introduced this to the portfolio here at LaGrange is because I feel like, especially in Virginia, And globally, Bordeaux is kind of the gold standard for wines. Everybody really understands and is predictable with what Cab Sauv is going to do in California, what it's going to do in Australia, what Cab Franc from the Loire Valley tastes like, Merlot from South America. These are very explored, very traditional and consistent grapes, and they're fantastic. But I feel like within the small region of France, you have Bordeaux on the left and then kind of the Rhone on the right. This is the contrast to that. I feel like Rhone blends, GSM in particular, are a little bit more rustic. They're a little bit more rural to kind of the refined, more elegance of the Bordeaux. This Bordeaux has a lot of kind of fruit and oak, and it marries the two. The GSM, in my opinion, it has fruit. It has, we put some oak on it, but it really brings out an earthiness that I don't find in a lot of the Bordeaux varietals. Mainly herbaceousness, kind of mossy forest floor. If you've ever walked through a dense woods after a rain and you can kind of smell everything around you, that's a lot of the backbone of this wine. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's look at the site first. Definitely a little bit more vibrant red, I believe, than the Norton was, but still kind of dark. Not really too much purple. Maybe a little bit of garnet or ruby, kind of around the middle. So that's telling us that this wine is a younger red and definitely has full of life. It being so vibrantly red and not kind of the darker or dull browns. We can tell that it's definitely in the beginning of its life, I'll put it that way. Moving on to the swirl and the sniff. This is where I feel like the earthiness really starts to come in. You get the fruit. It's almost like a berry mixture, raspberry, cherries on there. But then you get in this heavy moss, kind of dried leaf characteristics to it. A little bit of baking spices, not as much, not in the same kind of expression that was in the Norton. This is a little bit more, I don't know, rosemary, a little bit more on the herbaceousness side of it. And then trying the GSM, you'll try it. If you're used to drinking Bordeaux, Cab Sauv, and Cab Franc, this will taste very different. It is very balanced, I believe, but it really does change the focus from what Bordeaux focuses on to something that GSM does. And I think it's a different journey. It's the more earthiness, the more rustic kind of flavors coming through, married with the fruit. I really, really enjoy how this kind of came out. If you guys have anything to say on the flavors?
No, to kind of add on, the fact if you're one of those folks that are interested into drinking those Bordeaux, that's Merlot, Meritage, Cab Sauv, Cab Franc, this is quite different. But at the same time, it is giving you a lot of the same quality, a lot of the same feel, but it is something so different. This is something we've tasted on the tasting room menu for quite some time, and on a most regular basis, this was the wow factor. This was the one that you pour for someone, they never had anything like this. Not to mention, they've never heard of this before. So I really appreciate the fact that you can do things like this and put more different things out there besides Cab Sauvs, Merlots, the Meritages, because this is a really interesting, really fun wine. I think that we definitely see that in our clientele. That we enjoy this wine.
Absolutely, and we're a Virginia winery. I'm a Virginia winemaker. I wouldn't ever say that I'm not. And we do focus. We grow grapes on this property. And we make Virginia wines, but I do enjoy working with some West Coast fruit occasionally to do things like a GSM. Grenache Syrah, Mourvedre, you can find them peppered throughout the state. Small growers working with this and that, but not a whole lot of luck, and they're not really on the open market for grapes. I'll put it that way. And they're not something you want to spend a whole lot of money planting your own vineyard to test for everybody else. Yeah. So to work with these grapes and to work with such high quality of these grapes, we get them from the West Coast. But it really just, in my opinion, strengthens our portfolio to be able to offer interesting, worldly, globally relevant wines to our customers. So hopefully you guys enjoy it as well, seeing this wine here. I tend to say it's not one that you'll see in a lot of Virginia tasting rooms. So
if I can just segue into something based on what Seth is saying. Definitely try some stuff outside of the Bordeaux. If I can recommend a region to you, we're not doing anything here currently. Always trying to convince Seth to do something else, but try something from the Bandol region of France, which again is southeastern. But and like most French wines, it's going to probably say Bandol because they don't really tell you what's in it most of the time. Maybe on the back for the Americans, But the only other thing I wanted to say, and this is just personal taste, I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I do like this better than the 16 GSM, which was a fine wine, but I like something a little bit spicier, if you will, a little bit more tannic structure. I mean, that 16 was a fine wine, but I know a lot of our club members and executive club members really like those older reds, and
This is definitely it.
this will fit the bill.
This has a lot of layers to it.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed the package as much as we have and are drinking them as much as we have. As I said, as Zach said, this is the fourth time we've done this. We are going to answer some questions. The questions are pre-recorded from one of our earlier ones. But if you do have questions on anything we said or anything you'd like to know, please put a comment down below the video, and one of us will get back to you, I'd say, pretty soon. But the first question was about the GSM. It was, do you blend the GSM or do you buy the 3 varietal grapes and then make the wine? This came from Todd A. Todd, I think that's a really good question because field blends are very common as a winemaking style. People will grow Cab Franc next to their Merlot and they'll go out and pick them together into the same bins, bring them in, and that is their Cab Franc Merlot blend. I personally, it's my philosophy not to do that. I actually prefer to bring in the grapes as single varietals, vinify them by themselves, age them by themselves, and actually my blending technique is just before bottling, a few months. This allows me the greatest liberty to change the blend or overcome issues or anything that I see late in the season or late in the wine's life that I didn't see previously. I can still kind of navigate around that. Whereas I feel like if you blend early in the wine's life, either as a field blend, as grapes, as juice, or as a newly fermented wine, you run the risk of you can't unsalt the soup, and if that's not what you want, and 4 months later when you're ready to bottle, if the wine isn't developing how you thought it would or what your plan for it was, there's not too many options. So blending later is something that I've really incorporated into our winemaking program. It gives us a lot of versatility with dealing with unexpected issues. So hopefully that answers your question.
Ed, want to go next one?
Sure. Well, I think really the biggest difference you're going to find. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading the question.
You can't see the question. Ed didn't know that.
That's right. So the question is, what is the biggest difference between the 2018 and 2019 rosé? And that is from Stephanie T. So I think the biggest difference is the season. You heard Seth mention 2018 was a very wet, cloudy year. The grapes didn't get a lot of sun. And they need that sun to build up the sugars, right? Without the sun, they tend to be a little more acidic. 2019, by contrast, if you remember, it was kind of less than a year ago, at least the growing season. Lots of sunshine, very dry conditions. Again, you heard me say it when we talked about the Cabernet Sauvignon, Rosé. Best year in best growing year, best weather year in Virginia in a long time. So I think that's the biggest difference. So the 2018, you notice that deeper color. Also, we added that 1 barrel of Albarino to this wine, to the 2019, which gave just a touch more softness.
How are the Rosé and Catherine's blends aged, stainless steel or oak, or both? So Catherine's blend, like the tradition of the blend, is going to be stainless steel. That was, I believe, is a 60% Steven's saying, 40% Treminette. It is aged in stainless steel. We want to retain that acidity or retain that crispness. As Ed just said, the Rosé would be both because that 10% of Albarino was aged in oak. Now, to be fair, it's such a small amount, 10%. I doubt even a master level sommelier would be able to pick up that just small level of oak that's in there. So it's not something that's really going to make that big of a difference. So that would definitely be a steal, but there is a bit of oak in that Albarino. Second, the last one.
Sure. The next question is, what is the ratio of grapes in the 2017 Benoni and 2017 Meritage? I think Zach might have said it, but the Meritage 2017 was Cab Franc 50% and PV and Merlot about 25%. So 3 grapes. Cab Franc is definitely the biggest grape for that one. The Benonis, I do believe the biggest grape was the Cab Franc, and then the last two split in about the same ratios, 25%, 25% is Chamberson and Cabernet Sauvignon from our own vineyard. So the base is the same, different barrels, but the same grape, and then 50% of this Merlot PV, 50% of that Cab Sauv Chamberson. That's the big difference. So
If I can piggyback on that, because Seth just said something that, you know, I didn't know and I've learned since I've worked with Seth, but the barrels have a lot to do with it. So there's new oak, there's 2-year oak, there's French oak, there's neutral oak, and then you have other barrels, you have Hungarian oak, acacia. So even if the blends were exactly the same 3 grapes, maybe, you know, take the GSM for example, 33% of each grape, depending on the barrels you put in it, can have quite a bit of difference, make quite a bit of difference in the wine.
absolutely, and that actually I think is a good segue into the next question. When picking a yeast, do you try a small batch first to see if you like it? This question comes from Dustin J.
One moment.
And I do believe Ed is
I didn't get that.
onto
Sure
a.
again.
Does she think I'm talking to her? Ken?
Yes.
Sorry, we have robots jumping the line of questions. Wait your turn, sir. So the yeast is a very important aspect of this, and so we don't have the liberty to do small batch yeast and try it on the wine before we start this. If we wanted to do that on the fly in a live setting, we need to probably pick a sample of the grapes 10 days early, which already sets that juice apart with pH and sugars, and start the fermentation, kind of get a sense of it, and if it's good, we'll go forward, but if it's not, what do we do? Do we leave the grapes out and hang longer? So what we do is buy grapes from labs, and they're tested, they come in little packs, they're 100% that yeast, and we're using yeast that I've used in the past. Usually we like to bring in some new yeast to try some experiments, but the important part about the yeast is I will take proven ones that have worked with that and have given us good wines in the past and do it again. But rarely do we ever see a single yeast doing all the work on a wine. White wines will do that because it's one tank. I can't really mix too many yeast into one tank. But reds, if you guys ever have ventured back to our winemaking area during the fall, we ferment reds in big open top containers that take about 1,500 pounds of grapes, just under a ton. And we'll process 45 tons of red grapes in a season, so there tends to be a lot of these bins hanging around. Each bin will have a different yeast. So let's say I have 5 tons of Merlot, let's say that's about 6 to 7 bins. 2 of the bins will be this yeast, 2 of the bins will be this yeast, and we might even do the last 2 in 2 different yeasts. As long as one of the bins didn't turn out bad, they will be likely blended together and then barreled as a blend to really bring complexities to the wine. I know some yeast are going to promote more fruit flavors or licorice, and I know other yeast are going to give you more of the cherry cola or herbaceousness. These are things that I try to understand the style of wine that we're trying to make. Try to pepper it just as a spice rack would, of a little of this, little of that, and then kind of move forward with it. So hopefully that answers the questions about how we choose yeast here at LaGrange.
Well, I guess that pretty much wraps us up here at the virtual tasting. We'd like to just reiterate that all these wines are available. Additional 5% off all purchases. So bulk deal, these guys will be at 55% off cases, while anything else would be a 50% discount on there. Also for the remainder of the month, we are offering a sign a friend up at your rate. Some of you have been club members with us for a very, very long time. We very much appreciate that, and now you have the opportunity to sign your friends up at that rate.
Does that apply to me?
Yes, it does, but you have to find a friend first, Seth.
Will do.
This is something that we are very excited about because they will still get 7 bottles at the time of sign up, and you guys will get additional 2 bottles as a referral, so anything of your choice. So please tell your friends about us and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.